My wife's late meetings uncovered a sick betrayal. She called me clueless while cheating. You won't believe her lies and what happened next. Alright, Reddit, I never thought I'd be posting here, especially not in this subreddit. I always thought we were the stable ones, the couple who had it all figured out. Mike, that's me, and Sarah. Married for 8 years, 2 amazing kids, a house in the burbs, the whole 9 yards. We met in college, practically inseparable ever since. Or so I thought. Looking back now, I guess the cracks started appearing a while ago, subtle at first, like hairline fractures in a foundation you assume is rock solid. Sarah, she changed. Not overnight, but gradually. She used to be this vibrant, spontaneous woman, always laughing, always up for anything. Then, over the last year or so, she started getting distant. Her phone became an extension of her hand, glued to her palm, even when we were supposed to be having family time. She'd snap at the kids for minor things, then turn around and act like nothing happened. I tried to talk to her, gently at first. Hey, everything okay? You seem a little stressed. Her usual response? A sigh, an eye roll, and I'm fine, Mike. Just busy. You wouldn't understand. Always that dismissive tone, like my concerns were an inconvenience. The excuses started piling up too. Late nights at work. Even though her job as a marketing consultant usually meant flexible hours, not late-night crunch sessions. Weekends suddenly had appointments that couldn't be rescheduled. I'd offer to help, to lighten her load, but she'd just brush me off, saying she had it covered, or that I wouldn't be useful. It felt like I was living with a stranger sometimes, sharing a bed with someone who was constantly wearing a mask. I remember one night, maybe 3 months ago, things really started to feel off-kilter. She came home well after midnight, her hair a bit disheveled, and smelled faintly of something sweet, like a mix of cologne and cheap perfume that definitely wasn't hers. She tried to tiptoe past the bedroom, but I was still awake, pretending to read. Long day, I asked, trying to keep my voice even. She jumped, startled. Mike, God, you scared me. Yeah, client meeting ran super late. Just got held up. Exhausting. She wouldn't even meet my eyes, just hurried into the bathroom and locked the door. That was the first time I felt that cold, unsettling dread twist in my gut, the kind of dread that tells you something fundamental is wrong, even when you have no proof. My mind immediately went to the worst, but I shoved it down. Sarah? No way. Not us. Not her. Right? That cold dread, it didn't just go away. It lingered, a low hum beneath the surface of everything. I started paying more attention, which felt awful, like I was betraying her in my own way by even suspecting. But I couldn't help it. Her phone habits became more pronounced. She'd take it with her everywhere. Bathroom, kitchen, even when just stepping out to get the mail. If it vibrated, she'd practically pounce on it, shield the screen from my view, and then quickly type back. One evening, she left it on the kitchen counter while she went to put the kids to bed. A notification popped up, a message from an unknown number. Just a glimpse, but it was enough. Thinking of you, babe. Can't wait for Friday. My stomach dropped like a stone. Asterisk, babe? Asterisk, that wasn't a work contact. Not with that message. I didn't open it. My hands were shaking too much. I felt like a coward, but also like a predator, even considering invading her privacy. She came back down, snatched the phone, and glared at me. What are you looking at, Mike? She snapped, her voice sharp, defensive. Nothing, just saw a notification. I mumbled, trying to sound nonchalant, but my heart was pounding against my ribs. She scrolled quickly, then gave me a tight, unconvincing smile. Oh, just a work thing. You know how demanding clients are. And she slipped the phone into her pocket, practically hugging it. The explanation was thin, like tissue paper, and I knew it. But what could I say? Who's babe, and why can't they wait for Friday? That would have been an instant explosion, and I wasn't ready for that confrontation without more. The next few weeks were a blur of suspicion and self-doubt. I questioned everything. Our past, our future, every interaction we'd ever had. Was it all a lie? Was I just too blind to see it? Then came the Friday. She announced she had a girls' night planned. Just Susan and Emily, catching up. But Susan had mentioned to me earlier that week that she was out of town. And Emily rarely went out, preferring quiet nights in. I nodded, feigning understanding. Have fun, I said, my voice feeling strangely hollow. As she pulled out of the driveway, I felt a desperate urge to follow her. But I stopped myself. I needed concrete proof, not just a gut feeling. I didn't want to become that guy, the pathetic, paranoid husband. Little did I know, I was already living that nightmare. The actual discovery wasn't some grand detective work. It was sickeningly mundane, a cruel twist of fate that felt almost deliberately engineered to break me. It happened the following Tuesday. Sarah had gone out for another one of her late work meetings, leaving her laptop on the kitchen island. Usually, it's password protected, but this time, it was open. I was making dinner for the kids, whistling some silly tune, trying to push the unease out of my mind. One of the kids spilled juice, and I instinctively reached for a cloth. As I moved, my elbow brushed the laptop, and it slid slightly. To steady it, my eyes flickered to the screen. And there it was. An open chat window. Not an email, not a spreadsheet, but a WhatsApp web chat. And the profile picture wasn't Susan or Emily. It was a man I vaguely recognized from a company picnic a few years back. Mark, a new hire in her department at the time, a guy who always seemed a little too chummy with Sarah. My breath hitched. The messages. Oh God, the messages. Last night was incredible, babe. Can't stop thinking about you. Me too. Mike was out cold, so it was easy. Winking face. Wish I could spend every night with you. Soon, my love. Yes, soon. Just need to figure out the logistics. He's clueless. He's clueless. That's me. The stupid, clueless husband. My entire world crumbled in that instant. The whistling stopped. The juice spill was forgotten. My hands started to shake so violently I dropped the cloth. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was cold, hard proof, undeniable and brutal. It wasn't a late meeting or a girls' night. It was an affair. A full-blown, ongoing affair. And she thought I was clueless. She was mocking me, right there in black and white. My vision blurred. I felt nauseous, like I was going to throw up the dinner I was cooking. The betrayal hit me with the force of a physical blow, knocking the air out of my lungs. It wasn't just sadness or anger. It was an all-consuming fire that raged through my veins, mixed with a chilling coldness that settled deep in my bones. 8 years. Our kids. Our life. All of it, a lie, built on her deceit. How could she? How could she sit across from me at dinner, kiss me goodnight, and then message another man, calling me clueless? The image of her coming home late, that faint smell of cologne, her guarded phone, it all clicked into place, forming a horrific mosaic of lies. My stable life was a house of cards, and it had just collapsed. I remember standing there, frozen, staring at the screen, unable to process the words, yet processing them all too well. My world didn't just crumble. It shattered into a million tiny, razor-sharp pieces. I felt like I was outside my own body, watching a terrible movie unfold. The worst part was that last message, he's clueless. It wasn't just a revelation of an affair, it was a revelation of her contempt. My wife, the woman I loved, thought I was an idiot. The kids were thankfully engrossed in a cartoon in the living room, oblivious to the earthquake that had just hit their father. I closed the laptop, my movements stiff and robotic, like I was moving underwater. I couldn't breathe properly. My chest felt tight, constricted. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to just collapse into a heap on the floor. But I couldn't. Not yet. I had to hold it together for the kids. I don't know how I managed to finish making dinner. It felt like an eternity. I dished out their plates, forced a smile, and tried to engage them in conversation, all while my mind was screaming. Every bite I took felt like ash. Every laugh from the kids, a stab to my heart, a reminder of the innocent world she was destroying. When Sarah finally came home, nearly an hour later, the familiar dread coiled in my gut, but it was now laced with a potent, fiery anger. She walked in, breezy and confident, tossing her keys onto the counter. Hey babe, sorry I'm late. That meeting just dragged on forever. How are my favorite boys? She even leaned in to kiss me, and I stiffened. The smell of that same cologne was stronger tonight. My jaw clenched. We need to talk, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, though it felt like I was talking through a filter of ice. She paused, her smile faltering slightly. Oh, what's up? Is everything okay? She asked, her eyes darting around the room, avoiding mine. Classic Sarah, always gauging the situation before she committed. It's about your late meetings, Sarah, I continued, pushing the laptop towards her on the counter. She looked at it, then at me, her face slowly draining of color as she saw the familiar open lid. Her eyes landed on the WhatsApp icon, then flickered back to me, wide with a sudden, dawning fear. For the first time in months, she looked genuinely caught. The mask was slipping, and the bitchy defensiveness was already starting to bubble up. "What is this, Mike? What are you doing?" She stammered, her voice thin. "Oh, I knew what I was doing, all right." I was finally seeing her for who she truly was. "What am I doing?" I echoed, my voice rising a fraction, though I tried to keep it controlled. "No, Sarah, what are you doing?" I pointed a shaking finger at the laptop. "Open it. Go on. Let's see your late meetings and your demanding clients. Or better yet, let's just talk about Babe and Clueless." Her face contorted. The fear quickly morphed into a furious, defensive scowl. "You went through my laptop? How dare you, Mike? That's an invasion of privacy. Are you insane?" She stomped her foot, a childish, theatrical display that only fueled my rage. She was trying to turn it around on me. Classic deflection. An invasion of privacy? I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "You want to talk about invasions of privacy? How about invading our marriage, Sarah? How about invading my trust, our family, our life with your pathetic lies and your secret texts with Mark?" I spat his name out like it was poison. Her eyes widened again, but this time with something colder, harder. "Mark? What are you talking about? There's no Mark. You're imagining things, Mike. You're being paranoid. You're always so insecure." The lies just tumbled out, effortless and instant, a defensive reflex honed to perfection. "Don't you dare call me insecure," I roared, finally losing my composure. The kids, drawn by the raised voices, poked their heads out from the living room. "Daddy? Mommy? What's wrong?" My youngest asked, his voice trembling. My heart twisted. Sarah saw them, and her expression instantly softened, a calculated maneuver to look like the wronged party. "Nothing, sweetie. Daddy's just a little stressed," she cooed, shooting me a venomous look. "Go back to your cartoons." Then, turning back to me, her voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "Are you trying to upset the children, Mike? Is that what this is about? Because I was having a very important work meeting, and you're making a scene." "Work meeting?" I scoffed, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "The one where you were thinking of him and couldn't wait for Friday? The one where I was clueless?" I mimicked the text messages, my voice shaking with fury and pain. "Don't you lie to me anymore, Sarah? I saw the messages. They were right there, open on your screen. Last night was incredible, babe." "Me too. Mike was out cold, so it was easy. Tell me, what kind of work meeting involves that, huh?" She flinched, her eyes finally dropping from mine. The color drained from her face again, leaving it a sickly pale. The bravado completely evaporated. She was caught, undeniably caught. For a moment, she said nothing, just stood there, looking like a cornered animal. Then, a slow, single tear traced a path down her cheek, a performance I instinctively knew was meant to elicit sympathy. My heart, however, remained a block of ice. The single tear was almost comical in its timing. I knew it was a tactic, a desperate attempt to manipulate, to shift the narrative to poor Sarah, unfairly accused. But the messages were too clear, too damning. That tear didn't move me. It just made me angrier. "Don't even try that, Sarah," I said, my voice dangerously low, a stark contrast to my earlier roar. "Don't you dare try to play the victim here. I saw it all. Every vile word. Every mocking comment about me being clueless. So drop the act. Just tell me, is it true? Are you sleeping with Mark?" She crumpled then, not into a heap of genuine remorse, but into a melodramatic slump against the kitchen counter, burying her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook, but I heard no sobs, just choked, performative gasps. "Oh, Mike, I don't know what to say. It's just been so hard lately. I've been so stressed with work, with the kids, with everything. And you've been so busy, so distant." The blame game. Immediately. That was her fallback. Shift the responsibility. Make my supposed shortcomings the reason for her betrayal. My blood boiled. "Distant?" I cut her off, my voice sharp. "I've been working my ass off to provide for this family, for us. I've been trying to support you, offering to help you. And every time, you push me away, tell me I wouldn't understand. Tell me to leave you alone. You want a distance, Sarah? You created it. And then you filled it with another man." She lifted her head, her face a blotchy mess, But her eyes, though red-rimmed, still held that defiant, almost resentful glint. It wasn't like that. It just happened. He was there, he listened, he understood. You haven't been present, Mike. You're always so focused on work, on your hobbies. I felt neglected. Neglected? After everything. She had the gall to say she felt neglected. I stared at her, utterly disgusted. Neglected? So your solution to feeling neglected was to secretly sleep with a colleague, lie to my face for months, and then laugh about how clueless I was behind my back? That's your definition of a solution? She flinched again, clearly uncomfortable with the specifics. It's not. It wasn't like that. It was just a moment of weakness, Mike. A mistake. A stupid mistake. I regret it, I really do. More tears, still no real conviction behind them. She wasn't regretting the betrayal. She was regretting getting caught. Please, Mike, don't throw everything away. We have a family. We have the kids. We can fix this. I can stop. I swear it's over with him. It meant nothing. It meant nothing? I scoffed, a dark humor bubbling up through my pain. Your incredible nights and can't wait for Friday messages meant nothing? The fact that you clearly enjoy mocking me behind my back meant nothing? I stepped back, suddenly feeling cold. You know what, Sarah? You've said enough. I don't believe a single word coming out of your mouth right now. You're a liar, and you're still lying. The emotional impact was starting to hit, a tidal wave of grief and fury, threatening to pull me under. My chest ached with a pain far deeper than any physical wound. The argument, if you can even call her attempts at deflection and blame-shifting an argument, quickly devolved. She tried to cry more. She tried to shout. She even tried to hug me, claiming it was just a misunderstanding and that she loved me. Each word felt like a fresh stab. Her touch felt repulsive. I recoiled from her, the very thought of her skin against mine turning my stomach. I managed to usher the kids into their rooms, telling them Mommy and Daddy were just having a grown-up talk, and they needed to stay put. My voice was shaky, but they mercifully complied, probably sensing the seismic shift in the atmosphere. Once they were out of earshot, the raw, unfiltered fury I'd been suppressing finally broke through. Don't you ever touch me again, Sarah. I hissed, my voice barely above a whisper, but laced with a venom I didn't know I possessed. Don't you dare try to pretend this is fixable right now. Mistake? This wasn't a mistake. This was a calculated, ongoing betrayal. You lied to me for months. You mocked me. You chose another man. And now you expect me to believe you're pathetic. I'm sorry, and it meant nothing? Her face hardened again, the last vestiges of the distraught wife crumbling away, revealing the bitter, selfish core. So what do you want me to do, Mike? Grovel? Beg? I said I was sorry. What more do you want? I can't just undo it. People make mistakes. People make choices, Sarah. I shot back. And you chose this. You chose to destroy our family. You chose to humiliate me. And now you're acting like I'm the unreasonable one for being upset. The absurdity of her reaction was mind-numbing. She truly couldn't see past her own self-pity. Fine. If you're going to be like that, then fine, she yelled, throwing her hands up in exasperation. Don't forgive me. See if I care. Maybe I was neglected. Maybe I did need someone who actually paid attention to me for once instead of judging me all the time. This new sudden event of her flipping the script, completely abandoning any pretense of remorse and going on the offensive, was a shock, even amidst the chaos. It confirmed every awful thought I'd had about her character. There was no genuine contrition, no desire to repair the damage, only self-preservation and spite. You know what? I said, taking a deep, shuddering breath, the decision forming in my mind, cold and clear. I'm not judging you. I'm just seeing you for exactly who you are. And I can't stay here tonight. I can't even look at you. I walked towards the bedroom, my body still trembling with rage and the sickening realization of the end. I'm leaving. Tonight. And we'll talk about the kids and everything else when I can stomach being in the same room as you without wanting to scream. I grabbed a bag, my hands fumbling, tossing in some clothes and essentials, feeling her furious gaze on my back, but not caring. The emotional impact was overwhelming, a crushing weight of grief for the life I thought I had, and furious resolve to escape the toxic presence of this stranger. The drive away from the house was a blur. My mind was a chaotic storm of anger, sadness, and a chilling sense of emptiness. I ended up at my brother's place, showing up on his doorstep well after midnight, looking like I'd been hit by a truck. He took one look at my face and knew. No questions, just a hug and a quiet offer of a drink. I couldn't even explain it coherently at first, just sputtered out fragments of Sarah. Cheated. Mark, laptop. Clueless. He sat patiently, listening, his silence a comforting balm in the swirling chaos of my thoughts. The next few days were a living hell. I barely slept. Eating was a chore. My brother, bless him, tried his best to distract me, but my mind kept replaying Sarah's words, her lies, her sudden shifts from feigned remorse to outright bitchiness. He's clueless. That phrase was a constant echo in my head, a reminder of how utterly she had disrespected me. I had to see the kids. That was the hardest part. Sarah had been texting me, a barrage of manipulative messages. Are you really going to abandon your family, Mike? The kids miss you. You're being so selfish. This is hurting them more than it's hurting us. Can't you just come home and talk? She was trying to frame me as the villain, the one abandoning our children, while conveniently omitting her role in the whole debacle. I called her, insisting on talking about the kids' schedule. Her voice on the phone was a bizarre mix of sweetness and thinly veiled accusation. Mike, please, this is insane. We can fix this. I told Mark it's over, I swear. I made a mistake. Can't we just try? No, Sarah. Not right now. I said, my voice flat. There's nothing to fix until you actually admit what you did without trying to blame me for it. And I'm not coming home until I figure out what I'm going to do. Another sudden event happened. While on the phone with her, I could hear a muffled male voice in the background, distinct despite her attempt to cover the receiver. It wasn't the kids, and it sounded suspiciously like Mark's voice. My blood ran cold again. Who's that, Sarah? I asked, my voice tight. A beat of silence. Then, a quick, almost panicked response. Oh, that's just the TV. The kids are watching something loud. The kids are watching the TV at 10 a.m. on a school day? I challenged, knowing full well they'd be in school. She stammered, caught in another lie. No, it's just a neighbor. They're doing some work next door. God, Mike, are you still trying to pick fights? The audacity. She was still lying, still actively seeing him, or at least he was there, and she was still trying to gaslight me. The rage returned, fresh and potent. You know what, Sarah? Don't even bother. I'm coming to pick up the kids after school today. You can explain your neighbor to them later. I'm done with your lies. I hung up before she could respond, my hand shaking. The emotional impact of this continuous lying was devastating. It wasn't just the affair, it was the absolute lack of respect, the constant deceit, the pure, unadulterated bitchiness of her character. She wasn't sorry she hurt me. She was sorry she got caught. And she was still trying to keep her cake and eat it too. That phone call, hearing Mark's muffled voice, was the final nail in the coffin of any lingering hope for reconciliation. It was like a cruel, twisted confirmation that she wasn't just sorry she got caught. She was actively continuing the deceit. The "it's over with him," I swear, was just another lie in her endless repertoire. When I went to pick up the kids from school, Sarah was waiting, putting on a brave face, clearly expecting me to come inside, perhaps to plead with me again. I just nodded curtly, got the kids, and buckled them into my car, ignoring her attempts to engage me. Mike, can we just talk for a minute? She asked, her voice hushed, but still with that undertone of passive aggression. There's nothing to talk about right now, Sarah, I said, not even looking at her. I'll call you about visitation. And I drove off, leaving her standing there, a defeated look on her face that, for once, I hoped was genuine. My brother and sister-in-law were incredible. They helped me set up a temporary space, offered to watch the kids, and just generally provided a sanctuary from the storm. The kids were confused, of course. Where's Mommy? Why are we staying at Uncle David's? Explaining it without tearing Sarah down, while also not lying, was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I just told them, Mommy and Daddy need some time apart right now. It's not your fault, and we both love you very much. Their sad, confused faces broke my heart into a million pieces. The emotional journey was brutal. The initial shock gave way to a white-hot anger that burned through my veins constantly. Then came the profound sadness, a hollow ache in my chest that made it hard to breathe. I mourned not just my marriage, but the future I thought we had, the life I had built, the person I thought my wife was. It felt like a death, a sudden, violent ripping away of everything familiar. I started seeing a therapist. It was essential. He helped me process the waves of emotion, to understand that what I was feeling, the anger, the grief, the betrayal, was normal. He also helped me see that Sarah's behavior wasn't a reflection of my worth, but of her own issues. That was a tough pill to swallow, to separate her actions from my identity. I had always tried so hard to be a good husband, a good father. To have her call me clueless, to lie so effortlessly, it had chipped away at my self-esteem. But slowly, painstakingly, I started to rebuild. The separation became more permanent. Sarah, predictably, escalated her tactics. She started calling my parents, crying to them about how I was abandoning her and ruining the family. My parents, thankfully, knew me well enough to be skeptical, but it still added another layer of stress. She even threatened to try and get full custody of the kids, citing my instability, another sudden, vicious attack in her arsenal of lies. This was no longer about a mistake. It was a scorched earth campaign. But I was done playing her game. The threats about custody, the emotional manipulation with my parents, it all just solidified my decision. There was no going back from this. Sarah wasn't just a cheater. She was a manipulative, vindictive person, and I wouldn't live with that. The anger was still there, a simmering background hum, but it was now overshadowed by a sense of cold, determined resolve. I hired a lawyer, a good one. He advised me on every step, explaining that Sarah's behavior, while despicable, didn't automatically grant me full custody, but it certainly painted a picture of her character if it came to that. We began the arduous process of divorce, detailing finances, assets, and most importantly, hammering out a custody agreement for the kids. Sarah, true to form, tried to make every single step difficult. She argued over trivial things, tried to hide assets, and continued her smear campaign against me to anyone who would listen. Each interaction with her was a new battle. One particularly infuriating moment was when she tried to claim I had been emotionally abusive for monitoring her phone and not trusting her. The sheer audacity of her lies was staggering. She truly believed her own distorted reality, or at least, she was a master at projecting it. During one of our mediated discussions about assets, a new, sudden event unfolded. Her lawyer brought up the possibility of spousal support, claiming her career had suffered because she supported my ambitions. I almost choked. My ambitions? While she was out having an affair, I was the one busting my ass to ensure we had a comfortable life. And her career? She was still working the same job, presumably still seeing Mark on the side. When my lawyer countered with the evidence of her affair, she suddenly turned meek, her voice dropping. It was just a difficult time, she mumbled, no longer the bitchy aggressor, but a cornered mouse. It was a brief victory, but a satisfying one. My emotional journey continued, shifting from raw pain to a more detached grief. The sadness lingered, especially when I saw the kids struggling, but it wasn't all-consuming anymore. I started focusing on myself, on my well-being, on being the best father I could be. I rediscovered hobbies I'd let lapse, reconnected with friends I'd drifted away from. The gym became my sanctuary, a place to burn off the residual anger and frustration. The kids, surprisingly, started adjusting. They missed their mom, of course, but they also seemed to thrive in the more stable, less tense environment at my brother's place. When Sarah picked them up for her visitation, they'd often come back quiet and withdrawn, sometimes complaining about her, always being on her phone. It hurt, but it also reinforced that I was making the right decision. This toxic environment she created was not good for them, or for me. The decision was clear. There was no working on the marriage. It was fundamentally broken, not by a single mistake, but by a pattern of deceit, disrespect, and contempt. My resolution was separation, then divorce. It was painful, it was messy, but it was necessary. I deserved more than a life built on lies, and so did my children. The divorce process was long and draining, a marathon of legal battles and emotional skirmishes. Each time I had to see Sarah, whether in person or on a video call with our lawyers, felt like a fresh wound. She continued her attempts at manipulation, sometimes tearful pleas to remember what we had, other times aggressive demands for more money or time with the kids, always laced with thinly veiled accusations against me. It was clear she felt entitled, not just to half of everything, but to a narrative where she was the victim and I was the cold, unfeeling instigator. One particularly nasty incident occurred when she found out I had started casually dating again. A friend of mine innocently posted a picture of us at a group dinner. Sarah saw it and immediately launched into a tirade of texts, accusing me of parading my new life around and replacing her so quickly. "You always were so selfish, Mike. Don't you care about the kids seeing this? It's too soon." The hypocrisy was astounding, considering her own ongoing affair. I just blocked her number for a few hours until I could cool down, refusing to engage in her drama. My lawyer, accustomed to her antics, simply advised me to keep screenshots of everything she sent. Eventually, after months of back and forth, we reached a settlement. It wasn't perfect, but it was fair enough. We agreed on shared custody, with me as the primary parent during the week, given Sarah's less stable schedule and likely continued meetings. The house was sold, and the proceeds divided. It felt like severing a limb, painful but necessary for the rest of the body to heal. I bought a smaller place for me and the kids, a fresh start. The day the divorce was finalized was anticlimactic. No fireworks, no grand relief, just a quiet signing of papers. But underneath the quiet, a profound sense of peace began to settle over me. The constant anxiety, the dread, the anger, they started to recede, replaced by a quiet determination to move forward. The emotional impact had been immense, a complete upheaval of my identity and my perception of the world. I learned that trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to mend, especially when the betrayal is compounded by relentless lying. I learned to identify gaslighting and manipulation, not just in Sarah, but in other aspects of life. It made me warier, yes, but also stronger and more discerning. I also learned the importance of self-worth. For too long, I had minimized my own feelings and needs, always trying to keep Sarah happy, always trying to avoid conflict. Her betrayal forced me to confront that part of myself, to realize that my happiness and peace of mind were just as valid and important. I couldn't control her actions, but I could control my reactions and my decisions about my own life. It was a brutal lesson, but an invaluable one. The acceptance of the situation, the release of the anger, and the beginning of healing were finally taking hold. Life after the divorce slowly, painstakingly, began to take on a new shape. It wasn't the life I had planned, but it was my life, free from the constant shadow of deceit. My new house, though smaller, felt like a sanctuary. It was a space where my kids and I could truly be ourselves, without the tension and pretense that had permeated our old home. The kids, surprisingly resilient, started to flourish. They seemed happier, more settled. There were still questions about Mommy, and I always answered them honestly but gently, focusing on her love for them while acknowledging that adults sometimes make decisions that are confusing. I never badmouthed Sarah in front of them, no matter how much she continued to try and provoke me with her texts or her subtly critical comments during handoffs. I learned to gray rock her, keeping our interactions strictly businesslike and devoid of emotion. For me, the emotional journey continued to evolve. The raw anger subsided into a dull ache, then eventually into a distant memory. The profound sadness transformed into a quiet acceptance. There were still moments of grief, particularly when I saw happy families or old photos, but they were fleeting. I recognized them, acknowledged them, and let them pass without letting them consume me. The therapist was still a valuable resource, helping me navigate the complexities of co-parenting with a high-conflict ex and rebuilding my trust in others. One day, another sudden event occurred, though this one was external to Sarah. I bumped into Mark, her ex-affair partner, at a grocery store. It was completely unexpected. He looked surprised, almost guilty, and started to stammer out an apology. "Mike, look, I'm really sorry about everything." I just stared at him, a sudden surge of something that wasn't exactly anger, but a profound weariness. "Don't apologize to me, Mark," I said, my voice flat. "You don't owe me anything. You owe her, and maybe yourself. I just hope you realize who you're dealing with." I walked away, leaving him standing there, looking utterly bewildered. It was a strange encounter, devoid of the confrontation I might have imagined months ago. It just confirmed that my focus was no longer on them, but on myself and my kids. The relationship I had cautiously started with a kind, genuine woman named Emily, not the old friend, a new one, was slowly growing. She was understanding and patient, and her presence was a gentle reminder that not everyone was like Sarah. Building trust again was a slow process, a brick-by-brick reconstruction, but it felt good to finally connect with someone authentically. I reflect often on the whole experience now, usually late at night after the kids are asleep. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through, a crucible that burned away my naivety and forced me to confront uncomfortable truths about marriage, betrayal, and human nature. But it also forged a stronger, more resilient version of myself. I learned that I am capable of enduring immense pain and emerging on the other side. I learned the importance of boundaries, of speaking up for myself, and of trusting my gut. And perhaps most importantly, I learned that while love can be incredibly fragile, family, the true, unconditional kind, is remarkably strong. It wasn't the ending I envisioned, but it was a new beginning, and for that, I was finally, truly grateful. The path to genuine healing wasn't a straight line. It had its detours and setbacks. There were days when the old feelings would resurface, a sudden pang of loss or a flash of anger, often triggered by something innocuous, a song, a scent, or an old memory. But these moments became less frequent and less intense. I learned to acknowledge them, let them pass, and refocus on the present. Sarah, predictably, continued to be a source of sporadic drama. There was one particularly frustrating instance involving school holidays. She unilaterally decided to take the kids on an unscheduled trip out of the country without informing me until the last minute, violating our custody agreement. When I confronted her, she simply shrugged. "Oh, I thought I told you. Besides, they're my kids too, Mike. You're always so controlling." This sudden, blatant disregard for the agreement and her complete lack of accountability was infuriating, but my lawyer handled it, sending a stern letter that thankfully prevented it from happening again. It was a stark reminder that while I had moved on emotionally, the co-parenting relationship would always require vigilance against her manipulative tendencies. My relationship with Emily continued to blossom. She was everything Sarah wasn't: honest, open, and genuinely kind. She understood that my past was a part of me, and she never pushed me to forget or rush. Her presence helped me to see that true intimacy wasn't about grand gestures or passionate lies, but about quiet moments of shared vulnerability and unwavering trust. Building that trust was a careful, deliberate process for me. I was open with her about my past, and she listened without judgment, helping me to feel safe enough to slowly let my guard down again. The biggest impact was on my relationship with my kids. Being a single dad, having them with me most of the time, forged an even deeper bond. We had our own routines, our inside jokes, our shared experiences. I saw them growing into resilient, empathetic little people, and I was incredibly proud. They rarely brought up "mommy's boyfriend" anymore, and their visits with her seemed to have settled into a routine that, while not perfect, was manageable. I started seeing the world differently. I became more attuned to genuine connections, more appreciative of authentic people. The experience taught me a profound lesson about perception versus reality. For so long, I had seen Sarah through the lens of my love and trust, ignoring the red flags. Now, I saw her for who she was, and it allowed me to move on without bitterness, but with clarity. My advice to anyone finding themselves in a similar situation, stumbling upon that devastating truth, is this: trust your gut. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking you're crazy or paranoid. Get proof if you can, but even without it, if your intuition is screaming, listen. Don't waste time trying to rationalize their behavior or accept their hollow apologies, especially if they continue to lie or blame you. Protect yourself, protect your kids. Lean on your support system. Seek professional help. It will be the hardest thing you'll ever do, but you will survive. You will heal, and you will emerge stronger, wiser, and ultimately free. The road is long, full of unexpected turns and sudden events, but it's a journey worth taking. For yourself and for your future. Even with the divorce behind me and a new life slowly taking shape, the echoes of Sarah's betrayal would sometimes surface in unexpected ways. It wasn't the searing pain it once was, but more like a phantom limb ache, a reminder of what was lost. I remember one evening, trying to help my son with his math homework. He was struggling, and I instinctively used a gentle, encouraging tone, patiently guiding him. He looked up at me, a little smile forming, and said, "You're a good teacher, Dad. Mom usually just gets mad and tells me I'm stupid." It hit me like a ton of bricks. Not just a reinforcement of her character, but a stark realization of the emotional abuse the kids had endured, subtle but insidious. That was another sudden event, a moment of sharp clarity about the true extent of her negative influence. It wasn't just my trust she'd shattered. It was their sense of security and self-worth she'd chipped away at, too. It strengthened my resolve to be an even more present, loving, and affirming father. I continued to focus on personal growth. I picked up an old guitar I hadn't touched in years, found a local hiking group, and even started volunteering at a community center. These activities weren't just distractions. They were intentional steps towards rebuilding a fulfilling life, discovering aspects of myself that had been dormant or overshadowed by the demands of a dysfunctional marriage. Sarah, true to form, never truly faded into the background. She had a knack for creating drama. Another sudden event that blindsided me occurred when I received a call from the kids' school principal. Sarah had apparently shown up unannounced, demanding to see their grades, and then creating a scene in the office, accusing the school of favoring me because I was now the primary contact. The principal, clearly uncomfortable, recounted how Sarah had been quite aggressive and accusatory. I had to smooth things over with the school, apologizing for her behavior and reassuring them that I was fully cooperative. It was exhausting, a constant reminder that even post-divorce, her chaos could still reach into my life. My new relationship with Emily was a stark contrast to this drama. She was a steady, calming presence. We had honest conversations about my past, and she always affirmed my feelings without trying to fix them. She understood that healing wasn't linear and that some wounds leave scars. It was in these quiet, genuine moments with her and with my children that I truly began to understand what real love and partnership meant. Mutual respect, honesty, and unwavering support, not lies and contempt. The acceptance of my new reality grew deeper. I no longer yearned for the past. I looked towards the future with a cautious optimism. The pain of betrayal had carved out a space, but that space was slowly being filled with new experiences, new connections, and a newfound sense of self. I was learning to forgive myself for having been clueless, for having trusted someone who proved untrustworthy. It wasn't about forgetting, but about integrating the experience into who I was becoming. The emotional impact was no longer a burden, but a foundation for a stronger, more authentic life. The journey of healing also involved rebuilding my self-perception. For so long, I had defined myself, in part, by my role as Sarah's husband, the provider, the stable one. When she shattered that, it felt like my entire identity had crumbled. The clueless remark had stung the deepest, making me question my judgment, my intelligence, everything. But slowly, through therapy and self-reflection, I started to reclaim myself. I realized that my worth wasn't tied to her opinion or her fidelity. My worth came from who I was, my integrity, my dedication to my kids, and my ability to navigate this incredible hardship. This was a crucial part of the emotional impact, transforming victimhood into resilience. One afternoon, a subtle but significant event happened. I was at a park with the kids, playing catch, when Sarah called. My phone buzzed, and usually, I'd feel a knot of anxiety. This time, I looked at the screen, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No anger, no fear, no sadness. Just a neutral Sarah. I finished playing with the kids, then calmly called her back. Her request was, predictably, another attempt to shift responsibilities. She wanted me to pick up a forgotten item for the kids during her visitation. Old me would have felt obligated, resentful. New me simply said, "No, Sarah. That's for you to handle during your time. I'm not available." And I felt no guilt. It was a small victory, but it showed me how far I'd come in setting boundaries and protecting my own peace. My parents, who had initially been cautious and perhaps even a little swayed by Sarah's early manipulation, eventually saw the full picture. My mom especially, who adored the grandkids, witnessed Sarah's inconsistent parenting and her continued volatile behavior during pickups and drop-offs. One day, my mom pulled me aside. "Mike," she said, her eyes filled with sorrow, "I'm so sorry we didn't see it sooner. She's not the person we thought she was. You did the right thing." That validation, coming from my own mother, was a powerful affirmation and helped to ease some of the loneliness I'd felt. The kids, now older, started to grasp more of the situation. While I still protected them from the ugly details, they understood that their parents were very different people. My daughter, usually more reserved, once confided in me. "Dad, Mom always says you're too strict, but you just want us to be safe. She just lets us do whatever, and then gets mad later." This unsolicited insight from my own child was another sudden, heartbreaking confirmation of Sarah's parenting style and her continued efforts to undermine me. But it also showed that the kids were discerning, that they saw through her facade, which gave me immense relief. The acceptance became less about "this is what happened" and more about "this is who I am now." The man who was once clueless had become a man who was acutely aware, resilient, and deeply committed to building a life of integrity and genuine connection. The emotional impact had reshaped me, but not broken me. It had clarified my values and my priorities, making me a better father, a better friend, and a better man.